Talent is not an indicator of success, but I'll tell you the two traits that are. That's what we're talking about today on Black Ram TV's podcast, Gaining Ground. My name is Daniela Sugia, and I'm Chief Strategist and Creative Director at Black Ram Media Group, Inc. Thank you for joining us today. So many talented people in the world, so many, and it can be argued that everybody has a talent of some sort. So why is it that some people that are very talented just never get discovered or don't make anything out of their talent, right? And other people who maybe aren't as talented or maybe even as nice, you might think they're not even deserving of success, and yet they get all of the breaks. Why does that happen? And what can you do to make sure that if you do have a talent, you're able to make the most of it? Well, first of all, what you need to understand, and I'm going to repeat it again, just because you're talented doesn't mean you're going to be successful. And here's the really big shocker for some of you, is just because you're talented doesn't mean that the universe or whatever life is going to make everything unfold for you magically. Like I said, there's a lot of talented people that will never get anywhere. They're never going to be discovered, and it'll be a very sad thing, and that's a sad side. And some people don't want to. And if you don't want to, then you're good, right? If you say, you know what, I'm happy that I have this beautiful voice. I sing for my family. I sing for myself. I sing for my church, and I'm good. I don't need to sing for anybody else. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be known. I don't want to make money off my talent, because you might have some money issues mentally that put up that resistance. Many people do. And if you choose to keep that because you feel that there's some virtue there for you, feel free. I did that for a while. I played that game and I didn't like it. So I changed. I realized, actually, because I didn't want to focus on career or on money, because I wanted to focus on altruism and being of purpose. My line was, I don't want to just shuffle paper. I want to help change lives. Except that then I was broke because I was making stupid financial and career decisions and trying to be, as good a person as I can, to my own detriment. And what that taught me, that then I was so busy surviving, I didn't have any mental energy to do all of the wonderful things I thought I may be inspired to do if I wasn't bogged down by a career. And then I got tired of that. So I went into career mode. And when I did that, all of a sudden I had all this money to do all of this stuff. So as a leader of industry, I was able to co-sponsor the first textile waste audit in all of Canada. Nobody was doing it. Nobody had any inclination to do it. We had a PhD candidate that wanted to do this as part of their PhD, and let's go, let's get her done. And we did, and that was because I was a leader of industry that allowed me to do something like that. And there are many things I've done in my life now, in my career, that have helped many, many, many people. And if I wasn't successful in career, I wouldn't have the platform to be able to do that from. So what becoming successful did for me was gave me a platform for my talent to shine in. Where when I was younger and dumb, I thought that the talent would attract the opportunity or attract the person that could see that I was of value to the world, and they would give me the platform to do the thing. And that, that happens for some people, but that's not the standard play. That's not the standard play. The standard play is that somebody that is talented also has resourcefulness and resilience. I want you to write that down, tattoo that on you. Resourcefulness and resilience. Those people, so in the big pool of talented people on the planet, there's going to be a small subsection of those that are resourceful and resilient. They are the ones, when they say the cream rises to the top, it's not the cream into who draws the better line as an artist or whatever it is that you're good at. The cream is the trifecta of what you need to do the thing and do it at the top level. And that is resilience and resourcefulness. When you put those two traits with talent, well, now you're talking about Elon Musk level success, right? That is well beyond, you can move well beyond any barrier that is in front of you. You will end up at the top of that game with those two qualities. If you don't have them, every time you hit an obstacle, every time something comes up against you, or unless the opportunity falls in your lap, you were never going to do anything. So it's resourcefulness and resilience. So I could give you a million stories of how I've seen this sort of thing play out. But it's really comes down to a simple thing. Life is always going to go on while you are cultivating the talent. So even if you say to yourself, I truly believe that not only did it just happen that I'm born with this talent, but that it was given to me for a purpose. And I'm meant to use this to do something for the world, and that's going to be my legacy. So this is more than just I'm good at it, so I want to do it all the time. Some people, it's your life purpose to do this thing, and that can trip you up. I'm not saying that you're wrong per se. There are many people that have used their talent and changed the world. That's an absolute reality, and why can't it be you? The fact that you are even wishing it or wanting it, to me, is an indicator that you probably have something in you that should be cultivated and shared. We just have to find out what that is and what the most productive expression of that is. In my case, I never would have imagined, because I was a very spiritual person, that success in business, I needed that in order to live my spiritual purpose. I've realized that business is a spiritual function, because if you want to talk about this in religious terms, Jesus went into the desert to be tempted for 40 days, right? Business is where you get tempted. Business is where you learn, what kind of a person am I? Because business will expose you to temptations, to tests, right? And to levels of pressure because of the risks that you undertake, levels of pressure that the person that just works a job can't understand. That's why you see so many cultish kind of groups for entrepreneurs or networking for entrepreneurs. Some of it, sure, we're all in business. Let's see where we can work together to grow each other's businesses. There's that element. But a lot of the times it's like a support group, because if you talk to someone who, for example, has been at the same job, is going to get a nice fat pension, and they're feeling fairly secure, and then you're going to go to them and talk about the struggle you're facing that week, they will think you're crazy and say, well, why would you stay like that? Why don't you just get a job? They'll never understand the psychology of what makes somebody need to be a leader, because it's a calling. It is truly a calling. We forget that it is, because what are you going to do with that business? What are you going to do with that success? What are you going to do when you're faced with the temptations to, for example, cut corners to make an extra buck? Are you going to become someone who is like Scrooge, the old Scrooge, or are you going to be the new Scrooge? Who are you going to be in the face when you're faced with a lot of money, right? Are you going to take care of people, or are you going to be just a bigger asshole with a bigger reach, right? So it is a spiritual, let's say it's a spiritual game or a spiritual amusement park when you're walking into business life and success life. And because you have a bigger resource availability and, a bigger motivation, because it takes a hell of a lot of motivation to want to turn whatever talent you have into a business, especially if it's going to be a big business. If you've got big dreams, then even more so. Is what am I going to do in the face of all of those things? And that's where you prove your spirituality. That's where you exercise your spirituality, is remaining integral in the face of all of this. And we forget that. And in order to run a business, in order to live your talent, you need to be, first of all, resilient. Because it doesn't matter how great you are at what you do, almost everything in the world is subjective. So there's going to be the cohort that doesn't like you. There's going to be a cohort that hates you. There's going to be a cohort that loves you to the point that it's annoying and obsessive and makes you uncomfortable. There's going to be people that, so there's a huge spectrum of who and what they think of you. And frankly, except for your PR reasons, none of it is your business. There has to be a level of detachment to say, look, I'm just living who I am. Whether you love it or you hate it, like if you hate it, don't listen. If you love it, turn it up. And I'm just looking for my people. I'm not here to change everybody on the planet. I'm just here to help the people I can help. But you need to be able to keep moving in the face of all the stuff that's going to happen in your life, the potential divorces and betrayals and the pressures and the insecurity, and what if you change your mind and people hate you and come after you, or your life is miserable, or it doesn't work, and all these things you're going to be up in the face of. The first time you screw up on your taxes and, the Revenue Canada comes up your ass because you've never made money before. So you've always done your taxes like a broke person. Believe me, I remember a friend of mine becoming very wealthy very quickly, quite literally overnight. And she went into like a major depression because she realized that she wasn't equipped to be wealthy. She didn't know how to do it. And she was so scared of who to share that with, to know that who was going to know she was vulnerable and then give her bad advice and take advantage. So she ended up paralyzed in fear over what anybody else, would be celebrating. So success is a heavy burden to carry, and it's a huge responsibility. My father always tells me it's never your money. The way my dad sees it, everything is God's money. And God has decided that he's going to use you to be a steward of a certain amount of it. Now but you have to realize that. So you might be able to live well and live comfortable, and that's great. But how many other jobs are you creating? How many people are you getting off the street? How many, things are you starting that are having a positive impact on the world? And if you don't share and use the money responsibly, it will be taken away from you. And he lives by that motto. But because he does, it makes him a very integral person. And it makes him always motivated to improve the lives of everybody around him. And he is beloved. People love my father. I have a whole cohort of group of people that refer to my dad as their dad. And and that was hard for me at one point, right? That's my dad, I don't want to share him. I always had to share him in my life. And you know what? That was training me for later, because now I have to share him with lots and lots and lots of people, because he loves that big. His life and his love and his legacy is that big. And it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And it could be like that for you too. But my dad's had to suffer in his life to get to this place a lot, and to learn those lessons a lot. And so does every other success story. It's never quite easy. There's always, I thought it would never happen. I almost lost everything. There's a million of those stories in the entrepreneurial world. So if you are not a resilient person, you're going to fall. Or you'll burn out and say, I don't want this. Like, I can't. It's when does it get easy? Never. There's always the new regulation, the new competitor, the new hacker, whatever. There's always something. But so in life. And the same if you had a job. Just a regular job that to you feels secure. You could get laid off any minute. There could be a coworker that drives you crazy, right? How often does a work environment become toxic, but you need the job so much you can't leave, right? That happens all the time. So there's nowhere in life that you're free from whatever life brings you. But if you're resilient, it doesn't stop you. Because I also know people that everything's an excuse. I couldn't do this because this happened, so I had to stop everything because I was, sad or scared or whatever. I'm not saying I've never been, slowed down by personal calamity. That's arrogant to say that, right? Easy to say when you're not having that thing happen to you in that moment. However, just know that sometimes it's beyond just the extraordinary moments in your life that stop you. It becomes the habit of, every single day I'm not in the mood to do something, then I'm going to tell myself it's mental health that I don't do it. As opposed to realizing that really it's discipline. And discipline, the people that are successful, discipline is doing the stuff when you're not in the mood, where you still show up. You don't feel like it that day, but you do it. And I'm not saying to take it to an extreme where you're hurting yourself, because, everybody thinks in extremes. I'm saying find a place where you are disciplined enough to say, am I taking the time off because I really do need to rest, for my health? Or am I starting to use that excuse every time I'm not in the mood to do something? Because if you wait to be in the mood, the thing is never going to get done. So there has to be a point where, listen, physically I'm fine today. I'm just not in the mood because I'm never in the mood. But this house needs to be clean. This is ridiculous. Or I need to finish the taxes, or I need to do the thing. And do it. And do it. And the thing also is the stuff that grows your business, even as an artist, when you have a talent. So for example, until you make money, all you have is a hobby. So if you're a painter, let's say, or you have some, wild spiritual gift or something, right? And you want to share that with the world, but you don't share it with anybody because you're too busy at home doing the thing. If you don't share it, even in sales, if you're trying to raise revenue from this talent, so you're selling product or you're selling services, if you're not making the ask, if you're not prospecting, people aren't going to find you. So that's why you're not busy, is the tasks that grow your business, like prospecting or doing sales calls or, reach outs or networking, all that stuff that you're not in the mood to do, that you're never going to be in the mood to do. If you don't do it, nothing happens. You don't grow. You still stay a hobby. And then wonder why the universe didn't send you enough clients. You've got to do it. The talent, the universe gave you the talent. The rest is up to you, honey. So when I see people constantly, I'm going to do it in 5 years. I'm going to do it in 3. I can't do it right now because whatever. Or when I find this, then I'm going to do it. I don't even give that person another second thought of energy because I know it's never going to happen. I want to hear present moment energy. This is what I'm working on now. This is what I'm trying to get towards now. This is what I'm moving towards. This is my intention. Immediate. That's what I want to hear from somebody. Not wishy-washy and I'm so great, I'm just going to get discovered and everything's going to be, lovely. You want to know who gets discovered? People that pay a publicist to get them discovered. The only difference between you and whoever is doing what you wish you were doing on the public stage, the only difference between you and them is they have a publicist and you don't. So it's not that they're luckier than you. It's not that they're better than you. It's that they've done what they need to do to get discovered. They're resourceful. They're resourceful. So they realize if people aren't going to find me, I'm going to make sure that I'm shoved in everybody's face. And I need a publicist for that. I need a public profile for that. I need to step up my game. Showing people what I ate for lunch isn't going to cut it anymore. I need to learn how to make the ask. I need to strategize what I'm going to do in the next 5 years. Because I know what I'd like to do. I just don't know how. I need to build my emotional resilience. I need to build my resourcefulness. And how do you do that? By discipline. I remember there was a moment that my dad was not doing well, to the point that they said he was likely not going to survive the day. And it was at a very critical time in the family business. So I was trying to step in and help hold the fort so that, hopefully if he recovered, which thankfully he did, there was a business to wake up to, because he was out of commission for a while. And that day I was supposed to give a speech, and it was to a Chamber of Commerce group, so every single person in that room was a lead. So it was a very important speech. And it was raining, and my ride canceled. And I was a half-hour walk away, and I'm talking a major rainstorm. And my dad's about to die, okay? Literally at that moment, they had just resuscitated him. So he was that frail. And I thought, what am I going to do, So I started walking, and I walked to this place. And halfway through the walk, one of my colleagues called and said, Daniela, nobody's expecting you to go there today. My God, don't go there. Go home. Go home. And I said, no, because if he wakes up and I tell him I didn't do it, he'll be disappointed in me. For him, I have to do it. And I had 3 people call me in that half-hour walk, begging me to go home, offering to come and get me. And no, damn it, I'm going to give this speech. I showed up at that restaurant sopping wet, and nobody knew what was going on with my dad. I never said a thing. I went in, I had my breakfast with them, shook all the hands, gave a fantastic speech, probably better than any other speech I'd given to that point, just because I was doing it for my dad. And I walked around the corner, and completely broke down in sobbing, ridiculous tears to the point I couldn't speak. That is one of the proudest moments of my life. And when my dad woke up, the first thing he asked, how did the speech go? It was fucking awesome. Resilience and resourcefulness. And sometimes it means being smart enough to put things on the shelf, to know when to give up so that you can pivot to something else. Knowing when to pivot is very important. So although I keep talking about resilience, it doesn't mean, insisting on staying on a Titanic, right? I'm not talking about that either. But also when to hold on. You might have to hit pause, but not to completely give something up. I've faced all those things in my career. I remember being a leader of industry in one industry that was being monopsonized. And, I tried to fight it as long as I could, but one at a time. Monopolization is quite a curse in Canada, and it's bludgeoning industries. It's never good for industries, but governments like to tell you it is. Anyway, so this industry was being monopsonized. There was no fighting it, and at some point, I just had to let it go. And I was miserable. It was not worth the misery it was causing my personal life. So COVID happened, that killed the business anyway, and instead of pursuing other opportunities in that industry, I pivoted to something completely different. And I'm really glad I did. I now work mostly as a strategist and media consultant, and love it. That's my full-time gig. I'm gratefully very busy, and things are fantastic. So I'm so glad I did that. It was very risky. I was so scared, but it's been really great. And then I had this body care company, and that also during COVID, a worldwide jar shortage. Imagine trying to bottle a skincare line when you can't find jars. So again, one obstacle after another, and COVID kind of sealed that deal too. And then also there were people I was depending on as a team whose life changed. So they ended up moving and weren't committing to the project anymore, and it was on my own. And I realized it'll never fly the way it could in its current iteration. So I shelved it. And after a while, somebody offered to buy the formula, and I said no. And then they offered to do a joint venture, and I'd be a partner with them, and I said no. But that made me resourceful, because I realized, okay, you know what, I have some low-hanging fruit here. I need to find a way to, resuscitate this thing and do it right. So I got resourceful and I found the team and I found the resources, and now we're up and running again, and it's been a fantastic relaunch. Way better than the first time around. And not just because of COVID, just the way the product looks, the way it's being marketed, the team we have both in production and in operations. It's been a fantastic relaunch. So worth waiting. And at the time I was offered the sale, when they offered to buy it off me, I really needed the money at the time. But resiliency, right? Resiliency made me realize that this is too good to give up. So then the resourcefulness kicked in and said, so let's find the money you need to survive day to day somewhere else, so that you can do without the money coming from selling the formula, so I can keep it. That was a very wise decision. I wouldn't have made that decision if I wasn't resourceful, because I needed the money. The money became available. I could have sold it and all problems solved. But then I would have been out an opportunity that in the end will make me a lot more money. And then the resourcefulness allowed me to find a way to survive in the meantime, till I can get that company up and running again on my own terms, in control. These things are so important. So if you're talented and you're resourceful, then you will surround yourself with the people that can provide you the opportunities. You will look for the network. You will look for the way, and you will make that way. And when you trip and fall, or someone gets in your way, or something bad happens and you're not in the mood, you will still walk towards your goal. Maybe a little slower, but you're still moving forward every day. But if you're someone who gets easily pity party mode, or gets easily discouraged or easily distracted, then you're never going to get anything done. So at the end of the day, how smart you are, what you could offer the world, what you think you deserve, what you think the planet or the universe life should deliver to you, because you're so wonderful, all of that is a very defeating thing to fall into. That's a fallacy that's going to lead you to stagnation. So what you need to cultivate is a very deep awareness that it doesn't matter how great you are, there's 100 other great people, and another 1,000 even better. So what you just need to do then is to be more resourceful and more resilient than all of them. And then it doesn't matter that some might be smarter or some may be better. If they're not resourceful or resilient, they won't last. And when they get there, they won't be able to hold that success. Because when you get to the top, there's always somebody that wants that seat. So then it really becomes difficult. That's another thing, a lot of people don't realize what happens to your life once you're successful. And you might want to rethink certain goals, because you become all consumed by that life. And then it's hard, I look at families, for example, that their work ends at the same time every day. They get a weekend. They can go away on vacation. I envy that simplicity. We just went on quote unquote vacation, and we worked every morning, every night, had meetings during the day, and would catch an hour or two of pool or beach time. That's how we vacation as two entrepreneurs that live together. So it's like, well, do I want that responsibility? Do you know how hard it is to go to sleep when you have a dozen jobs that depend on you, 100 jobs that depend on you, a whole industry that depends on you? That's a lot to live with. It's one thing when you make a decision that impacts yourself. That's hard enough. Or, your household. Okay, a little bit worse. But when entire industries and communities depend on you, that's a really, and not every decision's easy, and not everyone is happy. So it's a lot to carry. It's a lot. And not everybody's up to it, which is why it could be said that life makes getting to success so difficult for so many people. Because it's like training. It's like, you don't wake up a CEO, because it takes you, going up the food chain slowly to get to that place, because you need to cultivate not just the knowledge of all the different things you learn along the way, but the wisdom, the sincerity, the resilience, the resourcefulness, all that stuff that helps you become a leader. It takes a training for that to happen. And that's what all of these obstacles and the stuff is helping you do. When I look back at why I'm a good consultant, it's not the happy things in my career that end up serving me in terms of advising my clients. It is all the shit that I've seen over the years, not just in my own business, but with other business owners and other people that I know that are in business. I've seen so much over the years, and it's a lot of bad stuff. And that's the stuff my clients need consultation on, because they're going through bad stuff. If I had not gone through the difficult stuff I'd gone through, I wouldn't be in a position to advise people. The other day I was talking to somebody who said, I guess they had called somebody else that was, very young, but they thought maybe some fresh ideas, fresh out of the gate. Let's get fresh ideas looking at this. And I didn't find this out till after our conversation. And I guess whatever they told him, he said sounded like they regurgitated it from a textbook. And it was one of the first things that this person tried, and it didn't work out of the gate. And the whole reason he was hiring a professional is to get an outside-the-box perspective and solution. So then he ended up coming to me. And when I gave him my version of my advice, he said, wow, I could tell that you've been around a while and that you've seen this before. And I said, yeah, more than once actually. And he said, yeah. And then he explained to me how he had hired somebody fresh. And he goes, if I wanted a textbook, I could just read the textbook myself. I guess that's why it's worth it to go with someone experienced. So if I never went through all that stuff, I wouldn't have the container I've built big enough to have anything of value to just be a consultant full time. But because there's so much stuff I've done, I'm available to a wide variety of professional that needs help on their PR journey. So please know that if you're talented and things just aren't working for you and you don't know why, it's not about being the better artist or better professional. It's about tapping into your resourcefulness and your resilience. And if you start really cultivating that and say, okay, what do I know I have to do that I'm not in the mood to do? What's the thing that I've been procrastinating on? What's that thing? Am I planning this thing to death? That's another big thing. If you're someone who has to plan everything to the last detail before you launch a thing, you're never going to do the thing. So it's all about self-awareness. Find where your blockages are. Find those emotional things in you that keep you from being resilient, that keep you undisciplined. Start Googling, how do I become more disciplined? I'm going back. Sometimes it's a simple Google search, even for things that seem big. I remember a client was trying to reach me the other day, and they were going through this huge panic because something had happened. And I was on a call, an important business call, so I couldn't take the call, and so they were texting me. All I did was one Google search, and there were a list of 10 leads without even trying. Now, who knows if those leads were any good? I don't know. They'd have to go down that rabbit hole and start looking. But the point is that a cursory Google search was leading them on the way, that they could have done that without the panic and without calling. And they were going into pity party mode. which is a huge problem if you do that. If you tend to go into self-pity, especially if it's cyclical, you need to address that. And often, not to be mean, but sometimes if you're very spiritual or very religious, you will tend towards this a little more. Only because you are not operating from a place of, I'm going to do this for myself and make it happen. If you're very religious or very spiritual, there's a faith that it's going to happen by default, that it will be gifted to you or brought to you. And so that already is a problem, right? That's a big problem. But then the other thing is, if it doesn't come, which it won't if you're not being resilient and resourceful, so when it doesn't come, then you tell yourself that it's not meant to be or that you're being punished. And then that will put you into pity mode. So you've got to look within to see all of the little lies or the little, misunderstandings or the belief systems that block you mentally from becoming resourceful. And you need to work on being disciplined to do the stuff you're not in the mood to do. Because those are always the most important things. It's like in yoga, they say the poses you can't do are the ones your body needs the most. So if you are not the best at whatever you're trying to do, today's talk should make you ecstatic, because you don't have to be. You just need to be good enough and then get very resourceful and be resilient, and you'll get to where you want to go. And if you are talented, very talented, then fantastic, right? It's just going to be that much easier. But you still need to be resourceful and resilient. And when you cultivate those two, you'll be unstoppable. Okay, everybody, go get them. If you'd like to reach out and ask me anything or stuff you'd like me to talk about, you can do so at Daniela@blackrammedia.com.